Morning again, everyone. So, thank you for attending this first session of the Policy Research Office online and discussion series. So, this session will focus on developing a policy research agenda in government and to acknowledge its need and importance. So, my name is Jay Rivera, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today. So, to formally commence this webinar, may I ask everyone to please turn off your microphone and give courtesy to the flag as we sing the Philippine National Anthem.
Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiliw, sa manlulubi, di ka masisingil, sa lagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo bangay, ay nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang tinamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y nagumpay na nagdidilim, ang bituin ng araw niya kailan magpapay magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng maraming pagsita, sumayalangin sa likod. Aming ligaya naman may mamagin, at namatay ng tayo sa'yo.
At this point, we'll just be having a short invocation. Almighty God, as we gather here today in your presence, we seek your guidance and clarity. Bless these endeavors of ours as we pursue the advancement of policy research within government. May the presentation and discussions here today shape our path towards a future where policy decisions are crafted with insight, integrity, and the good of all. Grant our speakers today the gift of clarity and all our participants the gift of understanding so that together we can make this a fruitful and effective webinar for all. Amen. So, good morning again. And we are truly grateful for your presence here today in the Zoom room, as well as those joining us in our Facebook Live. So, this is an important day for all of us as we are celebrating the Center for Governance 25th anniversary. And what better way to celebrate this by having a gathering of some of the best minds in government, academe, and the private sector to discuss the importance of crafting a policy research agenda. So, without any further delay, we will now proceed with the opening remarks. So, let us all welcome one of DAP's top executives, Senior Vice President for Programs, Ma'am Magdalena L. Mendoza.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to all our distinguished speakers, esteemed colleagues in government, and of course, participants joining us today online. On behalf of the Development Academy of the Philippines, I would like to welcome all of you to the first edition of this online discussion series organized by the Policy Research Office of the DAP Center for Governance. And also let me just congratulate them because this is the 25th anniversary of the Center for Governance, and what a fitting activity to have this policy research discussion series. We gathered together virtually to explore new avenues to improve public service and to foster a robust and evidence-based policy research culture within the government. It is my honor to have introduced and acknowledge also the most brilliant experts and practitioners in the field of policy research and development. And at this point, may I recognize and thank everyone ahead of the discussion. starting with Director Merwin Salazar of the Senate Economic Planning Office, Executive Director Novel Bangsal of the Congressional Policy Budget Research Department, Director Geraldo Petilla of the National Research Council of the Philippines, Dr. Jalton Tagibao of the University of the Philippines, Department of Political Science, Ms. Maxine Tanya Hamada of the H. Camp Consultancy, Dr. Eduardo Gonzalez, former president of the DAP, and Director Gilbert Lumantao, of course, of the Center for Governance Policy Research Office. Policy research serves as the backbone of effective governance. It guides our policymakers in making informed and critical choices that impact on the lives of millions of Filipinos. It is the crucial link between theoretical and scholarly knowledge and practical application, thus ensuring that policies are well-intentioned, effective, and sustainable in the long run. Our distinguished panel of experts today come from different backgrounds, and they also represent various institutions. They will provide a variety of insights and perspectives grounded in years and even decades of experience in the field of formulating some possible starting points in building a policy research agenda, identifying possible areas for collaboration with the academe and the civil society. I therefore urge everyone to participate actively, to share, and to be part of this ongoing conversation today. May the fruits of our discussion guide us in shaping a future where policy research is not just an academic exercise, but an integral component of our government's decision-making process. Thank you very much for the Policy Research Office initiative to organize this activity, and to all participants for sharing your time and presence with us today. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Magandang umaga rin po, SVP Mendoza, and thank you for that warm message. So let us proceed with the next part of this webinar, which is the overview of the online lecture and discussion series and its objectives. So to guide us for this portion, we have with us today Director Gilbert Lumantao of the Policy Research Office. Sir, you have the virtual floor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's good to see many of us here on a Wednesday morning. And allow me to just introduce the online lecture and discussion series that the Policy Research Office is launching today. This is part of our efforts to promote evidence-based policymaking in the Philippine government. And it is also part of our celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Center for Governance. We were created in 1999, and we hope that this will be the start of many discussions in the future. This particular session that we have will highlight the significance and importance of having a policy research agenda in government with the participation of all the institutions involved in policy research. We have today distinguished resource persons from different offices in Congress, also from the academe, as well as the civil society and non-government organizations. So we hope that this will be the start of something, the start of collaboration in the area of policy research. So without further ado, we welcome you to this online discussion today, and allow me to introduce our distinguished moderator for this morning. Our moderator for this morning is Dr. Eduardo T. Gonzalez. He is a professor and immediate past dean of the Asian Center of the University of the Philippines. Of course, for us, we know him more as the former president of the Development Academy of the Philippines, and he is a member of our academic council. He graduated with a PhD in public policy from the University of Pennsylvania. He is a member of the editorial boards of Asian Politics Policy, a peer-reviewed international English journal devoted to the study of contemporary Asia. Perhaps one important thing that I'd like to add, Dr. Gonzalez is the first director of the Policy Research Unit of the Development Academy of the Philippines. So he was the one who started this effort on policy research, and we have so much to thank him for. So we are privileged to have him today as our moderator. So kindly please welcome our moderator, Dr. Eduardo T. Gonzalez.
Good morning to everyone on our video call today. It is a privilege to moderate this very important session. Before we start, please join me in welcoming our esteemed speakers and reactors. This forum is an opportunity for them to share, discuss, and even debate the latest developments in policy research and explain how progress in their particular fields and jurisdictions will lead us to create an enriching policy culture for all of us. And now may I introduce our speakers for today. Okay, our main presenter is Merwin Salazar, Dr. Merwin Salazar. He is the Executive Director of the Senate Economic Planning Office. Prior to joining the Senate of the Philippines in 2004, he worked as a project consultant at the World Bank in Manila for public expenditure, procurement, and financial management review, and for the decentralization study, which is an assessment of the state of decentralization in the Philippines. His advocacies include strengthening monitoring and evaluation systems in the public sector and the institutionalization of a national evaluation policy through legislation. Of course, he's a member of the Senate Planning Office, the director. He has more than 20 years of professional experience from both private and public sectors in the areas of economic research, financial management, and public policy. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Economics and a Master's degree in Development Economics from the UP School of Economics in Diliman. He is now pursuing his PhD dissertation at Nagoya University. Okay, so I think, can we now hear from our distinguished?
Thank you, Dr. Ed, for the kind of introduction. I hope you can see my presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Okay, esteemed participants and guests, officials and staff of the DAP and other agencies in the public sector, guests from the various LGUs and NGOs and civil society organizations, colleagues in both houses of Congress, my fellow resource persons, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning to all of you. Foremost, I would like to thank the Center for Governance Policy Research Office of the DAP for inviting me in this webinar on this very important topic. And let me congratulate also to the 25th anniversary of the Center for Governance. In my presentation entitled Fostering a Collaborative Policy Research Agenda for National Development, we will discuss how working together on research can benefit our nation. A strong research agenda in government is crucial for informed policies and progress. Let's dive in and explore how we can make a positive impact together. So this is the outline of my presentation. Now, our office, the Senate Economic Planning Office, is tasked to provide the Senate President and the members of the Senate with proper research and in-depth policy analysis of socioeconomic issues facing the country. Also, CEPO is a member of the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council Executive Committee Technical Working Group, which provides staff support to the LEDAC along with the NEDA, the PMS, and the CPBRD of the House of Representatives. Now, policy research plays a crucial role in government by informing decision-making, as emphasized earlier by Vice President Magdalena, providing evidence-based insights contributing to the development of effective public policies. Within the Senate of the Philippines, the CEPO plays a pivotal role in this endeavor, especially in conducting rigorous research and analysis to support legislative processes and address pressing socioeconomic issues. Now, policy research plays a crucial role in shaping effective governance in national development. Specifically, it helps in bridging the gap between research and policy by offering evidence to support or challenge assumptions, values, and conflicts between policies and stakeholders. It also helps in developing policy competencies among researchers, enabling them to engage with policymakers and translate research into policy recommendations. It also helps in providing an enlightenment function, quote unquote, influencing the way policymakers conceptualize issues, frame problems, and understand the implication of policy options. In the case of health sector, for instance, collaborative research helps assess the health impacts, unintended consequences, and factors that facilitate the implementation and sustainment of policies. Findings of the study showed that collaborative research helps in influencing policy adoption, implementation, and evaluation, ultimately contributing to improved population health and addressing health disparities. But despite the importance of policy research, there are challenges in translating research into policy, such as the misalignment of research timelines with government decision-making, the lack of direct connections between researchers and policymakers, and the need for more effective mechanisms to broker these relationships. Policy research is essential for informing and improving the quality of government decisions, but its impact is often indirect and complex, requiring a nuanced understanding of the policy process and the interplay between research and politics. Now, the need for and importance of a collaborative research agenda in government involves a collective effort of government agencies, research institutions, and stakeholders to address complex societal problems and challenges. By pooling resources and expertise, collaborative research enhances the quality and relevance of policy recommendations, fostering a deeper understanding of issues and promoting holistic solutions that consider diverse perspectives and stakeholders' needs and are aligned with national development goals. Now, collaborative research also enhances decision-making in government by fostering partnerships between researchers and policymakers. This ensures relevance and accessibility of evidence, leading to innovative budgeting practices and sustained evidence use in policy decisions. Aligning research agendas with national development goals ensures that research efforts contribute directly to the country's socioeconomic progress. In developing countries like the Philippines, collaborative research is vital across sectors such as the economy, education, and healthcare. It brings together diverse stakeholders to identify and implement responsive policies as emphasized by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Studies have shown that in the economic sector, collaboration facilitates the development of policies aligned with local needs and global challenges. In education, it enables teacher involvement in policymaking, enriching decisions with diverse perspectives. Similarly, in the health sector, interdisciplinary collaboration translates research into impactful policies and practices. Now, what are the benefits of collaborative research? First is relevance of evidence. Collaborative research ensures that the evidence generated is directly relevant to the policy issues at hand. As researchers work closely with decision makers to understand their needs and priorities. By working together, researchers can ensure that their investigations align with the immediate priorities of policymakers, facilitating the application of research findings to policy decisions. Second, on innovation, by bringing together diverse perspectives and expertise, collaborative research can lead to new discoveries and innovative solutions to complex problems. Next is efficiency. Collaboration allows for the sharing of resources and specialized knowledge, which can lead to more efficient research processes and outcomes. Next is diverse expertise and resources. Collaborative research allows for the pooling of diverse expertise, knowledge, equipment, and resources. This can lead to the development of new methods and sharing of infrastructures, which can extend researchers' networks and encourage multidisciplinary research. It connects policymakers with a network of scholars and experts who can provide insights into specific policy areas, such as, for example, public safety programs or health interventions. Collaborations may open up new funding opportunities, as some donors prefer to support projects that demonstrate cross-sectoral partnerships. Next is higher quality research outputs. Collaborations can lead to more comprehensive and high-quality research outcomes due to the pooling of diverse expertise, resources, and methodologies. International collaborative research is associated with higher quality research than national collaborations. Papers that are co-authored internationally tend to have greater research impact as collaborations lead to more influential and often cited research. This is according to a study. Next is addressing local and global challenges. Collaborative research in developing countries can help address both local needs and global challenges such as non-communicable diseases, infectious diseases, and environmental issues by bringing together international experts and perspectives. Next is increased credibility and scope. Collaborative efforts can enhance the credibility of the research and broaden its scope, potentially influencing a wider range of policy decisions. Next is equitable partnerships. When done ethically, research collaboration can overcome power imbalances and ensure that the benefits of research are equitably shared. This requires transparency, mutual respect, and respect for social norms. Next is trust building. These partnerships cultivate trust between researchers and policymakers, which is crucial for the effective use of evidence in decision making. And on capacity building, collaborative research often includes a focus on building local research capacity, which is crucial for sustainable development. This can involve training and mentorship of local researchers and the development of research infrastructure. Collaboration can lead to personal and professional development for researchers and open doors to greater opportunities for research funding. It also allows tapping into global knowledge and developing networks for joint initiatives and knowledge exchange. For instance, both think tanks and academic institutions can benefit from mutual learning and capacity building, enhancing the research and policy analysis and capabilities. If there are benefits, there are also challenges to collaborative policy research undertakings. First is diverse interest and regulatory frameworks. Collaborations can be hindered by differences in objectives, cultural backgrounds, and regulatory frameworks among partners, especially when involving industry and the academia. And then funding restrictions, limited funding for research, particularly in academic settings, can constrain the scope and impact of collaborative projects. Next is institutional barriers. Mismatches in organizational structures between think tanks, government agencies, the universities can make formal collaboration difficult, requiring significant effort to overcome bureaucratic hurdles. Next, intellectual property rights. Managing intellectual property rights is a central issue in collaborative research, with potential conflicts arising from differing expectations among partners. What is the long-term impact of a collaborative research undertaking? First is sustainability. Building collaborative relationships can help sustain evidence initiatives over the long term, maintaining projects through policy cycles and leadership changes. And then knowledge transfer. Collaborative research promotes the transfer of knowledge not only within academic circles or in government, but also between universities, government, and the private sectors, which is beneficial for addressing public policy challenges. In the innovation sphere, we have what we call the triple helix. The tri-helix model is a conceptual framework for innovation and economic development that emphasizes collaboration among three key actors: the government, academia, and industry. The tri-helix model suggests that innovation and economic growth are driven by the interactions and collaborations among these three actors. An example of this is the Silicon Valley in the United States. But now there's a higher collaboration called pentahelix, composed of the government, academia, industry, the community or the civil society groups or NGOs, and the environment. And I believe that we can replicate this model in research collaborations. Now, what are the current and continuing initiatives on policy research agenda of the Senate Economic Planning Office? The SEPO, our office, employs a comprehensive research strategy tailored to meet the evolving needs of the Senate and the nation. Our research agenda encompasses two main components. First is the program research outputs, and the second is the center's request for research and studies. The program research outputs focus on priority legislative agendas, the Philippine Development Plan, and the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course the current socio-economic issues. And additionally, we also respond to centers' requests for research on specific topics relevant to their interest. This could come daily or at random at any time. Our office also formulates a proposed legislative agenda that is done every start of every Congress. This document is being reviewed and updated at the end of every Congress for consideration in the next proposed legislative agenda for the next Congress. Now, collaboration with esteemed research institutions like the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and other institutions, as well as participation in the Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, or the SERPI, amplify the impact of reach of our research outputs. Now, here are some examples of our research outputs. We have at a glance, we have policy briefs, we have policy insights, economic reports, budget notes, policy matrix, and major publications such as the proposed legislative agenda. We have few collaborative research activities with the UNDP, and we have also collaborative research-related activities with some NGOs like the Institute for Autonomy and Governance. Effective policy research must be responsive to the evolving needs of society and aligned with national development priorities. Therefore, it is imperative to link research agenda with legislative priorities, the Philippine Development Plan, the SDGs, and the government's monitoring and evaluation system. Moreover, securing adequate budgetary allocations for research activities is essential to sustain the momentum of research efforts and ensure their long-term impact. Aligning research with the National Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals ensures that research efforts are directly relevant to the most pressing issues facing the country and the global community. This alignment helps in addressing specific challenges identified in the Philippine Development Plan, the sectoral plans of the country, the sustainable development goals, such as, for instance, in the areas of poverty alleviation, health, education, and environmental sustainability. By focusing research on these areas, the findings are more likely to influence policy and practice, leading to impactful changes that contribute to achieving these goals. The NDGs, the PDP and the SDGs cover a wide range of interconnected issues that require interdisciplinary approaches to research. Aligning research agendas with these goals encourages collaboration across disciplines, bringing together diverse expertise and perspectives. This interdisciplinary collaboration is key to developing innovative solutions to complex problems, and it allows for a more holistic understanding of issues and the identification of synergies and trade-offs between objectives. Now, the SDGs are global goals that require international cooperation to achieve. By aligning research with the SDGs, researchers and institutions can foster partnerships and collaborations across borders. This international cooperation is vital for sharing knowledge, resources, and best practices, as well as for addressing trans-boundary challenges such as climate change and pandemics. It also helps in building capacity in developing countries through knowledge transfer and collaborative research projects. Now, collaborative research is more likely to attract funding and support from governments, as I have mentioned earlier. Many funding agencies prioritize projects that contribute to achieving these goals, recognizing their importance for sustainable development. For CEPO, our office, we believe that the following thematic areas for research can support the development initiatives in government in the present Congress. First is fortifying macroeconomic stability, enhancing competitiveness and resiliency of growth sectors, strengthening digital connectivity, ensuring responsive basic and social services, securing the future through environment and climate change actions, and uniting the nation through transparent, responsive, and adaptive governance. You can take a look into these areas by looking into our proposed legislative agenda for the 19th Congress, which can be found in the Senate website. In conclusion, collaborative research is a powerful tool for enhancing decision-making processes in government. It ensures that research is relevant, accessible, and effectively integrated into policy, leading to more informed and effective public policies. It is indispensable for driving sustainable development and advancing national progress. By fostering partnerships and aligning research agendas with development priorities, we can harness the transformative power of research to address pressing societal challenges and build a more inclusive and resilient nation. Let us reaffirm our commitment to excellence in policy research and work together towards a brighter future for the Philippines. Thank you, and looking forward to a fruitful discussion later. Over to you, Dr. Ed.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Salazar, for very insightful perspectives on policy research in the Senate. Now let's move to our next speaker. Let me introduce him. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Novel Bangsal, who is the Executive Director of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Development. Well, let me call him Novel. He is no stranger to DAP, having graduated from the PMDP. No? He has a diploma in public management development, belonging to the senior executive class. in 2016, here at DAP. As director of the Budget and Tax Policy Research Bureau of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department, he oversees and supervises the budget and tax research activities under the CPBRD. He is the author of a number of publications on several relevant policy concerns, including public finance, social protection, agricultural development, and institutional and constitutional reforms. He served as a delegation secretary to the members of the House of Representatives on various interregional parliamentary assemblies, forums since 2015. May we now hear from Executive Director Bangsal.
Thank you, Sir Edgon. Nice to see you again. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Let me just say hi to my mentors in Sec 5, Ma'am Dedeng Mendoza and Sir Edgon. Nice to see you again.
Hey there.
Although in online, but hope to see you again on a face-to-face basis. And also to my fellow presenters, Merwin and Jerry. I would like to thank the Policy Research Office for this invitation to share the policy research setting of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department, or CPBRD. The CPBRD is the primary research arm of the House of Representatives. So let me just go over my presentation, and I just would like to present a context or a framework using a problem tree analysis of the current economic, social, and political landscape, and to explain how we're able to arrive at a number of research agenda items that our department is currently looking into. And on the onset, let me just say that there's a high level of appreciation for evidence-based research in Congress. But the types of research being demanded may vary considerably. There are process and impact evaluation, medium to long-term policy-oriented research, and operations-oriented research. The CPBRD has maintained its trust on conducting policy-oriented research over the years, and it should do so in the future to fulfill its mandate. More recently, with the increasing interest given to assess the effectiveness and value for money of public programs in light of the tightening fiscal space, we are directing more attention to doing evaluation studies. And we have been engaging several institutions, both private and government, like UNICEF, in order to pursue and push for this agenda of conducting evaluation studies across public sector programs. But like other government institutions, the CPBRD have limited fiscal and human resources, and we can only focus or be selective, in particular, those that matter to legislative or oversight priorities of the House. And because of this circumstance, this has compelled us to engage other knowledge institutions in order to cover as much research gaps as possible, which the CPBRD and the rest of the research community ought to respond to. Our recent engagement with various partners such as Ateneos ASERD, NCRP, under Doc Jerry's supervision, CEPO with Merwin, World Bank, KDC, UNICEF, and among others, have resulted to collaborative and adaptive research outputs that lend themselves useful to policy and legislative situations. Next slide, please. Can you show the next slide? Okay. On the research agenda front, CPBRD has been responsive to policy priorities of the government, and more or less this slide will tell you that more or less this has been drawn from inputs from the latest Philippine Development Plan, the 8-point socio-economic agenda of the current administration. In particular, we pay attention to the vision laid out in the Ambition 2040. And again, as I said, we have also took into account items in the 8-point agenda that tackles immediate on-the-ground concerns such as inflation and tight fiscal space. To guide the crafting of our indicative agenda, we use problem tree analysis to analyze the binding constraints and to discern the priorities and possibly sequence policies that impact on the achievement of desired strategic outcomes. But it's important to note that the recent agenda exercise that we did departs from the previous one, mainly for the reason that the underlying theme of today's development is about transformation. Taking off from the lessons during the pandemic, we are acutely aware that the challenges ahead have evolved and multiplied. This means changes in the way we do things, how public services are delivered, how rules and regulations are enforced, and so on, under the so-called new normal environment. So critical elements of this transformation, and these elements later on will have to play a greater role in the way we are able to, prioritize the research agenda, our research agenda. So first is digitalization. So COVID, the pandemic, served as a catalyst for a wave of digitalization in government and in the private sector. In the public sector, this enabled service continuity, while in the business sector, business continuity meant having to switch from relying to foot traffic to online traffic. Due to the technology-driven industries and sectors, these discussions are intertwined with issues of network externalities, competition, intellectual property, and even national security. So another element is servicification. This strategy fosters inter-sector linkages to create synergies for more value-adding opportunities, expansion of products and markets, and more efficient delivery network. The third element is, of course, the greater collaboration between local and national government. Of course, with the decision of the Supreme Court on the petition of the Mandanas Garcia, there is a great opportunity to optimize the sharing of responsibility between local and national government. Of course, with the express condition that the assignment of expenditures and functions should be first clarified. And over the medium term, there will be close coordination through capacity building programs and mentoring for LGUs, especially in areas where national government support will be greatly needed. And fourth and last is partnership with the private sector. There are multiple areas to expand the role of private sector to deliver more benefits to the public. The government's role is to provide calibrated incentives to priority industries and foster an enabling business environment to allow job-generating businesses and industries to grow. So basically, these research teams, elements I just mentioned, may not have substantially changed over the years. I think we've been talking about digitalization, collaboration between national and local for some time now, but their presentation and emphasis may have changed in light of the pandemic. And it should be noted that specific research outputs under each research area could change in the immediate future. And at the same time, it has become apparent that previous research items have now assumed a new sense of urgency, that refinements and sharpening of focus are needed to address the unique features of the enduring socioeconomic problems. For example, the persistent budget deficit of the national government and its financing or borrowing plans, along with the public debt management, considering the still elevated level of debt to GDP ratio, and considering in the medium term, we expect to see this level of debt to GDP over the medium term, and also budget reforms. All of these research items demand continuing attention over the period the administration plans to balance the budget up to possibly 2028. So going back to the slide, if you will notice at the topmost box in the slide, shared prosperity in this case is defined as to the extent which economic growth is inclusive. So this focuses more on the household consumption of the poorest household. So this does not deviate much from the long-term vision of Ambition 2040. So the contributing factors to increasing risk to shared prosperity are, as you can see in the next row, are economic and social insecurity, as well as in inadequate employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. So bringing back the economy on the high growth path will require, as I said, a transformation process. And just to put your attention on the third row, with the respective chapters also mentioned in the PDP, this is where the process of transformation will come in. So by way of human capital and social development services, in the aspects of health and nutrition, education, and lifelong learning, this will basically provide households with the needed set of capabilities to be economically productive. In addition, the government will also establish a program to ensure food security, especially for the most vulnerable, and complemented by a holistic, modernized, rationalized social protection system. So going to the production sectors, meanwhile, this will be transformed so that this will be able to generate more and better quality jobs. So agriculture and agribusiness will be modernized. Industry will be revitalized with focus on manufacturing, services, including tourism, creative and business processing sectors will be reinvigorated. The transformation will come by way of greater support to R&D, as you will see below that row, R&D technology, development and adoption, and innovation. Inter-industry linkages will also be enhanced, and promoting trade and attracting investments will be aggressively pursued. So looking back, the strategic framework that we're looking at is consistent with some of the elements of the transformation process that I just mentioned earlier, such as digitalization and strong sector linkages. So these elements that I've been talking about permeates the framework that I've been trying to present. And of course, there will be a favorable business climate. As you can see, the lower rows with that are boxed below. So these are the critical factors that will foster a favorable enabling factors characterized by macroeconomic stability, healthy competition, political stability resulting from peace and security, and practice of good governance. So also resilience to the impacts of disasters and climate will have to be strengthened. Of course, the cost to the economy of natural disasters cannot also be overemphasized in this case. So can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so having said having presented and laid down the our analysis using a problem tree framework, we now try to identify a number of items or research items where we might want to divert or direct our attention to. So in this case, we feel that as I was mentioning earlier, wherein the transformation process will have to take place. So the production sectors will be transformed to provide high quality, high skill, and stable employment opportunities. So from this point, the CPBRD indicative, again, research agenda will include the following. One is the National Quality Infrastructure System, and just to briefly describe this, is that there is a need to address the fragmented nature of the country's national quality infrastructure systems, which currently limits the capacity of local manufacturers to comply with global technical regulations and standards. Next in the agenda is to ensure compliance with national competition policy. There is a lingering need to review existing policies and regulations that still restricts competition in the market, hinders the entry of new players, and that facilitates collusion and provide undue advantage to specific firms. So such policy and regulatory restrictions on competition need to be assessed in the context of market dynamics for each industry. Also, there's a need to establish a cybersecurity legal framework. Again, from the point of view of the rapid spread of digitalization in both public and private sectors, we feel that designing a legal framework to strengthen cybersecurity and policies on minimum information security standards to protect critical information structure is critically needed at this point. Another item that is critical to the digitalization process is the National Spectrum Management Framework. This proposed policy will facilitate the effective and efficient use of country's spectrum or radio frequencies. It will also explore alternative modes to allocate spectrum fairly and efficiently, including the possible use of competitive auctions. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so another set of research items that we will be exploring, of course, from the energy front, there's a need for us to explore viability of nuclear energy. The research will explore the inclusion of nuclear energy in the energy mix, The Executive Order 164 on adopting national position toward a nuclear energy program has set the stage for re-evaluating the entry of nuclear energy into the fuel mix. Of course, IPIRA in the Renewable Energy Law reforms stipulated in these laws need to be assessed in order to determine whether the reforms or these reforms have been completed. And of course, the primary strategy to reduce costs and make energy more cost effective is to ensure that these reforms have been completed. And the last item there, of course, is again, this research items intends to address the issue of limited investments and adequate physical and digital infrastructure. And a critical research item in this case would be to explore, study policy barriers to foreign direct investment. Again, our department have been looking at reviewing costs of policy and regulatory barriers to FDI and to determine what necessary course of action are needed in order to develop a more liberalized investment regime policy to improve FDI inflow to the country. Of course, this is notwithstanding recent legislation passed on the Public Service Act, the retail trade, liberalizing retail trade, as well as amendments to the Foreign Investment Act. Next slide, please. So I think the next one is on promoting human and social development. So having laid down the lessons from the previous efforts in human development and social development as well, key transformational strategies that should boost health and well-being of Filipinos, as well as improve education and lifelong learning. I think the research items includes, of course, looking at the universal healthcare. Again, the pandemic exposed the weak capacity of the healthcare system in terms of prevention, control, and mitigation of infectious disease. Also bringing to light the lack of healthcare workers. So I think there's a need to adopt a whole of government approach. In this case, in particular, in the provision of nutrition programs for malnutrition, financing of universal healthcare, and evolution of healthcare facilities maintenance. Another research item cited here is the improving education and lifelong learning. So policy investment gaps need to be addressed over the medium term. So it's important to identify programs, activities, projects that increase access to flexible learning options and intensify learning methods to promote learning continuity and retooling. Next slide, please. So again, improving bureaucratic efficiency to us is foundational to an enabling environment for economic transformation, as you can see in the slide. So strategies for this outcome include right-sizing and digitalizing government functions. Again, as I was citing earlier, elements of digitalization permeates so many research areas while enhancing productivity. So to do this, appropriate diagnostic frameworks and strategic reviews of the role, mandate, functions, and structure of government will be critically needed. And another research item here is accelerating digital transformation in government. Government must adapt to digital technologies to improve efficiency and right-size the government. But to accelerate digital transformation, there's a need to strengthen the legal and institutional framework and to develop civil service capacity for the implementation. The next item here is efficient budget system, or the pursuit for budget modernization reforms. The full implementation of the modernized Philippine government procurement system, automation of procurement-related reports, and simplification of bidding documents will help streamline procurement process, improve budget utilization. So let me just note that a budget modernization bill has been introduced in Congress, seeking to institutionalize reforms in cash budgeting system, public finance management, or PMF, which will basically or essentially institutionalize fiscal discipline to ensure that budget proposals from line agencies will undergo extensive preparation and implemented on time. Can you please show the next slide, please? So these two research items, of course, the full devolution as a result of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling presents a lot of areas for research. Again, the devolution transition plans of national government as well as local government units has been ongoing, and it would be very critical to really delineate and clarify the division of or the assignment of functions across levels of government. Of course, the pursuing military and uniform personnel pension reform is also a critical research element, considering that the fiscal implication of continuing under this pension regime has been exerting a lot of pressure to our fiscal management. So I think these are critical research areas that need to be looked at from the point of view of fiscal management. So next slide, please. Okay, so we now come to the fiscal management aspect. So as you can see from this slide, a number of research items here refers to a number of tax reform proposals already been pursued in the previous administration. But again, we just would like to emphasize the need to generate adequate revenues so that we'll be able to finance economic development and provide better education, health, and social services. So to sustain sound fiscal management, the following proposals or research item proposals that the CPBRD is currently reviewing or is expected to conduct an analysis includes items on that policy research items include green taxes, new fiscal regime for mining sector, digital taxation on VAT, and also PIFITA. I mean, just to cite these items currently pending, whose measures are currently pending in legislation in Congress. I mean, so on top of the studies and analysis that we're conducting in the aspect of tax reform, CPBRD also, I think this is one of the institutional outputs and regular functions of the department, which is to conduct budget analysis of the proposed national expenditure program. And if you will look at our website in Congress, you would see a number of research outputs on analysis of the President's budget. Also, our agency budget notes that analyzes the proposed budget of different departments. And also, we also do public expenditure reviews of specific major programs to establish if the objectives of allocative and technical efficiencies are being met. So next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, at this point, we are also looking at research proposals that that looks into the objective of modernizing the agriculture. So again, the rice tarification law and its attending or corresponding RCEP collections from the import tariffs or tariffs from imported rice also is a interesting area that need to be looked at in terms of how these revenues are being utilized and whether or not objectives are being met. Also, again, I just would like to emphasize this item, which is developing innovative insurance schemes. Again, from the increasing and worsening climate change scenarios, we need to provide more financial protection to our agricultural producers, especially rice farmers, to provide them financial protection against outbreak of pests and diseases as well as natural disasters. I think this is one very critical area that research collaborations will be needed. So next slide, please. Okay, I think I have already covered the budget reviews and evaluation policy framework. So next slide, please. Okay, I think this is my last slide. So just to having said the research background of the department we just would like to point out a number of considerations in developing research infrastructure that will be helpful for for collaborative activities. I think it's important to note and to consider, especially on the way or the ability for research institutions to access statistical information. So there are areas in the statistical system where some improvements are critically needed. So reliability and consistency of the estimates, of some statistics need to be ensured. There are also statistical systems that need to be frequently updated as they are needed to analyze economy-wide impacts of certain policies. Example of such statistics are input-output table and social accounting matrix. Very few of the existing statistical systems provide highly disaggregated consumption, price, and income data. And just would like to say that we have engaged the PSA to come up with an estimation poverty incidence at the congressional level, just to come up with more disaggregated data of poverty at the congressional level. And second is quantitative tools. Maintaining quantitative tools such as DSGE and CGE is an important task of a policy-oriented research institution. So these models are not necessarily meant for forecasting purposes, but for evaluating the net effects of macroeconomic policies. And last, of course, is the collaboration and research partnerships. I think given all the limitations and research gaps that need to be covered, I think I just would like to emphasize the need for collaboration. And from our end, the CPBRD has been able to touch base with knowledge institutions, some of which are here in the webinar, and we cannot emphasize enough the need to be able to reach as many audience as possible to be able to reach and touch base and be able to disseminate research outputs. Of course, data is also an important element in our in the business of research. So again, I'm trying to put it here, of course, of the need to share information and data so that more research output can be generated. So in case you wanted to look at our knowledge inputs, you can see our CBR website, cpbrd.gov.ph in the Congress website for more information. So again, thank you to all and good morning.
Thank you, Director Bangsal. Very nice flow diagram and a thorough analysis of, the disabling factors that threaten sustainable development. And of course, ending with what will enable us to overcome all those difficulties. Okay, thank you so much. Our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Geraldo Petilla. He is the Chief Administrative Officer of the Finance and Administrative Division of the National Research Council of the Philippines. Dr. Petilla holds a doctorate in public administration, a master's degree in international studies, both from the University of the Philippines and the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. He is the Chief Administrative Officer of the NRCP and an associate professorial lecturer at the Graduate School of Management and Governance at PLM, or the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. He was previously Deputy Executive Director for Policies and Programs at the League of Cities of the Philippines, a graft investigation officer of the Presidential Anti-Graft Commission, the PAGC, and an assistant professor in political science at UP. Today, he leads the charge of the council in promoting policy research, especially within the Senate and the House, with a focus on advocating for evidence-based legislation and governance. Dr. Petilla, your turn.
Right, magandang umaga po, Dr. Eduardo Gonzalez, and of course, my colleagues here, my colleagues in the government, the private sectors, and of course, yung mga kasamaan ko na resource person for today. A pleasant morning, and it's an honor to be part of this discussion. And before my discussion, I'd like first to discuss a little background about the my agency, which is the National Research Council of the Philippines. And truly, the three of us who are here right now, the four of us, are actually colleagues and friends. And through the policy research, our relationship, especially with the agency and with CEPO and CPPRD, have been strengthened because of this, what we call collaboration in policy research. And we want to promote the importance of having policy research in the government. Okay, next slide. Right, to give you a short background about the National Research Council of the Philippines, I know that a lot of us here would have probably, it would be the first time that I've heard about the NRCP. The National Research Council of the Philippines is an attached agency of the Department of Science and Technology. And it has a rich history, and it shared a lot of important roles in the developing of research in the country. As a matter of fact, the NRCP was created, established in December 8, 1933. through the Act 4120. So it's a vintage law, it's a vintage act, but this was created during the Commonwealth period under the time of Manuel L. Quezon. And the creation of this National Research Council of the Philippines was actually patterned after the National Research of the United States. So when you take a look at the laws or the charter of the NRCUS, a lot of its features were really copied from that law and made it as part of the NRC law. And the main intent of the law is for the to develop and to gather the best and the brightest of the country and help the government in providing research, the knowledge, and of course advisory, especially along scientific lines. From 114 original members of the NRCP at that time, mostly Filipinos, some were actually foreigners. Currently, we have around 6,000 plus members all over the country. And in almost all regions and almost all provinces, we have members of NRCP. And majority of this membership are located, they are working with the state universities, HEIs, and other agencies of the government. So most of our researchers here are part of the academe. And one good thing about the membership here is that we cover the vast number of sciences. Almost all the branches of sciences are represented in the membership. So when you talk about the natural sciences, and you have also the social sciences and the humanities and the arts, we have all the membership here, the NRCP. And of course, we have national scientists, we have also technocrats in the government, and many of them are in the cabinet. And some of them are also artists and humanists. So that's how diverse the membership of the NRCP. So we are the oldest national research council in Asia. We are already 91 years old this year. And I think in the world, probably NRCP is the third oldest NRC. Now, just to give you, after giving you the brief background about the origin of the NRCP, we have the purpose as provided in the mandate. It is to stimulate and support research for national development, defense, and the welfare of the people. Number two is to develop effective means in utilizing the scientific and technical resources. And number three, promote cooperation in research at home and abroad. And since 1940s and the 50s, NRCP has been engaged in international collaboration, UNESCO for one, Pacific Science, on all other international organizations. Next is we gather and collate scientific and technical information at home and abroad. We promote the continuing total development of the Filipino scientist and researcher. So there's always that objective that in order to sustain research, we have also to develop Filipino researchers. And serve as an advisory and consultative body to government policymakers and facilitate effective linkages between government and other sectors. So all these things would suggest to us that there is really a need for us in the development of research in the country. There's always the importance of linking with the different society, community, and even agencies. By the way, you might be wondering why the scope of when we speak about the science of NRCP, it adheres to the definition of UNESCO that science is any branch of knowledge. So we cater both the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities as part of the membership of the NRCP. All right, next slide. So this would tell us that 91 years ago, the government has already that vision that the country needs researchers to sustain the development of the country. In fact, in one of the explanations, one of the reasons or the rationale why NRCP was created, it was primarily to help the country, prepare the country for its independence. That's why we need researchers, we need scientists to help our government, not only to discover ideas, inventions, and probably, but more importantly, to provide also advice to the national government. Now, when we speak of collaboration, which is the main discussion in this forum, we give emphasis on the collaborative policy research as agenda in the government. And the mandate itself of the NRCP speaks about collaborative effort. 90 years ago, the charter defines that the council shall, whenever called upon by any department of the government, investigate, examine, experiment, and report upon any subject of science or art. So, long time ago, NRCP was the go-to institution as far as the needs of the government to provide research and advice. Secondly, on the side of the policy advisory, to serve as an advisory and consultative body to government policymakers in matters relating to science and technology, and to provide a forum for the discussion and for formulation of scientific plans and policies. Again, while we stress on the importance of the science, it does not discount the possibility or the area that we have also to engage on other areas of the sciences. So again, it's not only on the side of the natural sciences, but we also provide discussion on other disciplines, social sciences and humanities. Right, next slide. Now, to gather and collate scientific and technical information at home and abroad in cooperation with government and other agencies, and to render such information available to as wide as public as deemed necessary. The charter was way ahead, no? But it's time, because 90 years ago, it has already projected itself that the government must be dealing with each other. If the one government agency and some institution, even abroad, there's a need for us to go together, collaborate, in order for us to provide the necessary data information to the public. And of course, when we speak about transdisciplinary research, to stimulate and support research in the mathematical, physical, biological, and social sciences and humanities, and the application of these disciplines to engineering, agriculture, medicine, and related fields, with the object of advancing the frontiers of knowledge and developing concepts and technologies for national development, defense, and welfare. So all these are written in the charter of the NRCP. And that makes us also excited in a way that many years ago, we have already identified the importance of multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and now we are going towards transdisciplinarity. All right, next slide. Now, in response to we tried to summarize the current and continuing initiatives on policy research. To be more specific, in the last 5 years, the NRCP has been more conscious of its role on policy research. Because for the longest time, the NRCP was more engaged in basic research. And when we speak of basic research, it's more on discovering the fundamental and discovery of important information ideas that would be relevant to the development of science. However, we recognize of the fact that it's really important that we have to fulfill the mandate of the NRCP, which is to do more on policy research. And the existence and the active participation of the NRCP in the last 5 or 6 years is primarily because of the collaboration. And we take pride and we are happy to say that in the past 5 years, we've met a lot of institutions, organizations, particularly in the Senate and the Congress, and now the local government units, because we want to be the provider of service. If we look at the nature why the council was created, it's primarily looking at who will be the provider of service, of research to the country in order to propel the country to development. So the question here will always be, who will be doing the research? So when we started with this research, the policy research, it guided us to important questions. And the question of research for whom? Research for whom? Para kanino yung ginagawa nating pananaliksik? And why do we have to do the research? When NRCP's budget, the creation of NRCP is definitely government initiative. The sources of fund is a taxpayers fund. In other words, we exist primarily because of the support of the Filipino people, taxpayer po ito. And it's really important that we recognize the fact that research is a public good. And therefore, going back to 90 years ago, it will remind us that research is not something only for the academe, it's not only for the intellectual growth or the discovery, but primarily, we have to serve the interests of the government. That's why we are blessed or lucky to say that of the many agencies in the government existing right now, one of the first initiative of the Commonwealth government is to establish a research institution that will help in the development of the Filipino researchers. And that, I think, should remind us that that is a purpose, that's a strong indicator that we have to go back to that very purpose, that the growth of research must be shared, must be to support the government and the people in general. And that's why it's always a challenge for us to answer the question, research for whom and why do we have to make a research? Now, going to the case of NRCP, we are guided of the fact that when we do research, it must be to respond to demand-driven research from legislators and chief executives of the local government units. So we believe that on the principle of subsidiarity, of course, that we give importance to the voice of the legislator and policymakers. For them, they would know exactly what would be the priority research that has to be made. I think little by little, a lot of our legislators and even populi in the local government is learning on the value of policy research. This is not just a matter of asking them, what are your priorities? What are the needs that you have, especially in doing policies? It's a challenge always on the part of, we speak with NRCP, for NRCP, that there's always that kind of perception that when we talk about legislators and policymakers, there will always be some little chance, of course, of accepting or appreciating the value of research. But to our surprise, this becomes an avenue for us to seek first, to ask from them, what do you think would be the most important? First is the need for us to have a policy research, a research that will support your legislation. And when we introduce that kind of idea, that there is a need for us to provide support evidence to your policies, a lot of our legislators and policymakers will welcome this idea. So the other experience that we have here is that considering the limited budget that we have in the government for research. By the way, the share of research of the Philippines right now in comparison with the other countries is we are way below. And the investments of the prescribed investment for GDP for research should be around 2%, but the Philippines has a lower record for that. And the number of researchers that we have in the country are very low compared to, in terms of millions, we have only around 100 plus in terms of number of researchers. So there's always a challenge for us to look for researchers, to identify and to develop researchers who can help the government. Dito po, we consider the fact that a lot of researchers have really to be utilized. And therefore, the best way to ensure that researchers will have a chance of being utilized is to ask.
Hi, sir. You're on mute.
Okay. The other thing is, when we speak about research requests are the priority and necessary to respond to existing social, environment, and developmental needs of the region and the country. And here, it ranges from the national to local. And it's important that we have to identify what are those research needs of a particular legislator or solon. And this is to ensure that the research will be utilized by a particular area or group. And this is also related in response to providing that research are responsive, that are relevant and responsive to the needs of the country. The number 3 opportunity here is when we speak of collaboration, it creates opportunities for legislators and local chief executives to discuss with researchers on existing policy problem or issues. One success or one thing that we are also advocating here is that when we speak of researchers, based on the experience that we had, researchers normally will work on their particular paper or study on their own. And we don't have a mechanism wherein they will have a greater opportunity to connect with legislators. But in this particular initiative that we have been doing in the past 5 years, we were able to bring together on the table legislators, and we have also the researchers. And there are also cases that we bring together legislators, the local chief executive, and the researchers. And when we speak of researchers, these are the NRCP researchers. So there are 3 important groups talking and discussing, identifying what would be the policy question, what would be the policy problem that will be needed. So in this case, for us, bringing together 3 groups, the interface of these 3 important groups is in fact something that we have to work on, continue to work on, because we want to see the continuing synergy between solons, local government, and at the same time, the researchers. And the output, a lot of the output that we have been doing lately is from the legislators' request. They are also being utilized at the moment even by the local government units. The research results are already being utilized by a lot of our LGUs. And there are cases when the LGUs will be requesting for research, that the research results are also made known to the solons, primarily because of in order for them to help to seek the support to sustain a program that they are trying to initiate right now in the local government. And the second important thing of the collaboration here is that we were able to engage people, researchers from the different disciplines. Previously, when we talk about researchers, the basic researchers, basic science researchers, the natural science researchers will do the research on their own. But now, with the policy research that we have, we are trying to utilize and engage both researchers from the natural science with the social science and policy researchers. And it's a growing mechanism, and it promotes some kind of interdisciplinarity. And now we are all continuing to evolve as well as many sectors as we can. So while we have a lot of basic researches, in other words, mostly natural sciences, it can be utilized and connected in the creation of the policies. In fact, a lot of our researches right now requested by solons are mostly policies that would need the support of basic research or the support of natural sciences. For example, when we talk about environment or tourism related studies, ecotourism, there will always be a challenge for us to look for in order to develop an ecotourism plan for a particular locality or province, there will always be a need for us to look for the support, to seek the support of those people who are into the natural sciences, like biology, ecology, and even experts on caves or experts on mangrove. And they will be able, and even looking at the flora and fauna on a particular locality, just like in the case, for example, of Siargao. And the output of these researches are also utilized in the crafting of policies. For example, we have certain legislations in the local government, the need for budget, and sometimes the results are even utilized by other departments like Department of Tourism, Department of Education. So in other words, the basic research or are utilized right now for purposes of also of policies, and it strengthens, it gives more a quality kind of learning that policy research must really be based on the sciences or on the science. And that's another collaboration that we have been seeing all this time, that there is more discussion, there's more room for the different disciplines. There's more room for universities from Luzon talking with universities or researchers in the South, probably in other areas of the province. So we developed there's some kind of cooperation between researchers in the country. So we don't work on silos anymore, because we want to promote the collaboration between different researchers. And now there's more greater chance between the local government discussing with us and probably with Solons the importance of the research. Right, next slide. Right, it provides also an avenue to utilize basic researches in the crafting of policy studies. So dito, as they say in Tagalog, walang matatapon na research. Because whatever you have there, the basic research, or what we call also the natural science, mostly natural science research, they can be utilized for crafting policy research. So we provide a synergy between the two. And the important thing, ang challenge kasi sa maraming basic researches or natural sciences is how do we utilize natural science researches that can go beyond the theoretical and academic. No? Most of may lot of our basic researchers would take us years to develop it. But with the policy problem or challenge of the identified by the LGU or probably by the Solon, we're able to connect existing or even current basic researches on how it can strengthen also the policy studies. Number 5, in doing collaboration and discussing legislation, there will always be some gaps along the way. So this is an opportunity for us. We see the need to bridge the gap between the legislature, local government units, and member researchers through the Council's effort to communicate and harmonize research results towards policy adoption and formulation. In a recent trip, we have been going to other parts of the country, and a lot of our local government units would need to respond to certain problems and concerns. Like, for example, the flood in Mindanao, and how they will be able to gather the different local government units and agencies so that they will be able to respond to certain challenges. Using, of course, in the course of the discussion, they'll be able to come up with common policy or action. But of course, they need to be guided by science. They need to be guided by research. That's why we see here as an opportunity for the NRCP to be the convener and to be the linchpin in gathering different agencies so we can talk and address the gaps between different offices. Number 6 is complementing research initiatives, capacity building, and advocacy in realizing the objectives of policy towards effective implementation, readiness, and sustainability. Here, we have developed, we have realized and discovered the importance that research is not stand alone. We do research, But after the research, what's next? We have to ensure the sustainability and utilization of the research. However, when we speak, no matter how good the crafting of a certain policy, but if the policy is not properly implemented, the resources, the efforts that we have done to intervene in order to make the government work better will be put in futility. We need to ensure that there will be efforts on how we can sustain that the local government units will be ready in adapting or creating that in adapting the research results. One important challenge or objective in policy research is we don't only provide facts, we don't only provide the data, we don't only create knowledge, but we really hope that in creating knowledge, we will be able to create a change in mindset as well. That the data, that the information or the research that we have provided would be necessary in creating that kind of change in mindset. And hoping that change of mindset that we create not only for our decision makers, but also for the people who are implementing the policies will also create some kind, there will be what we call the change of behavior. To sustain our programs and efforts, we need to make the local government units ready for whatever has been provided by the research. And this will require us to engage also on capacity building, to provide the necessary interventions that would be necessary to complement what is being advocated by the policy or the policy research. We need to provide some activities that will also complement in the areas of advocacy. So we see here three important things. When we initiate the policy research, we take inspiration that the research is needed by the community or by the Solon, but we have to ensure that the continuing education on the side of the people who will be adapting, both the local government and those that will be utilizing the research will be ready for that. So there's a need for capacity building, and of course, then there's a need for advocacy. So when we look at the project, there will always be a component, there'll be component of advocacy and capacity building. And of course, lastly, we share with the interest and the interest of CBPRD and the government that we need to provide evaluation studies for the local government and other government agencies. Currently, if we look at the country in terms of the supply as to who will be able to provide help to local government units and agencies, there's a little supply of researchers. We cannot expect that government agencies or even LGUs will be able to evaluate their programs or even their policies. There is a need for us to develop and create researchers in the country who will be able to provide support to the growth of our LGUs. That's why we need to capacitate more researchers who will be ready to help and support our government. After all, the reason why we have researchers is that primarily to address the growth of the intellectual academic growth of researchers, but we are here to provide support to the government, especially to its development. Right. Next slide. And regarding the priority research areas, while we take cognizance of the importance of the Philippine Development Plan, we would be responding, the NRCP is responding to the priority agenda of the State of the Nation address articulated by the President. And those that are also defined by the legislative branch of government. And we are primarily right now working on the priority agenda from the Solons and policymakers. In the past 5 years, we have been working closely with the Congress, especially not only to a number of Solons, but to a lot of committees in the House. In fact, we have been doing yearly. We have an activity that we do yearly, wherein we present the research results of those requested by Solons in Congress and even in the Senate. We presented to the Solons on the research results and even to the committees of Congress, and we discuss the next steps after the discussion. What would be the next steps as far as legislation is concerned? So that is together with the researchers sitting side by side with our Solons and technical people. And lastly, we are also working on the priority agenda of some chief executives, a number of chief executives of local government units. Right now, we have a continuing commitment with the Mindanao Development Authority, and we have also been doing assessment on what will be the priority agenda, capacity, research capacity, and advocacy. So we are going to do the same thing actually for the Visayas and Luzon. With that, with all these efforts that we are hoping, definitely we say that the success of policy research is primarily because of the need for greater collaboration and the network that will really help strengthen ourselves to respond to social, economic, and the political problems of the country. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Petilla, for that very exhaustive analysis of what NRCP is doing in terms of policy research. And thank you for reminding us that, policy research is a public good. It is non-excludable, non-rival, and therefore it must serve the interest of everyone. Okay, thank you so much. Now, for our last speaker, we have our very own Gilbert Lumantao. He is the director of the Policy Research Office, our host. And well, Gilbert is a certified public accountant by profession. He earned his BS degree in accountancy from the Holy Name University. He has a certificate in anti-corruption studies from Hong Kong University and an MA in public administration from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy that is under the National University of Singapore. He served as a researcher at the Institute of International Legal Studies of the UP Law Center as an accountant, and then as a graft investigation officer of the PAGC, or the Presidential Anti-Graft Commission, and also as a technical assistant at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Director Lumantao, your turn.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Allow the staff to share the slides first. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to just point out that this is our effort in the Policy Research Office to link up to the bigger efforts of CEPO, CPBRD, as well as the NRCP on policy research and on collaborative policy research. So my presentation is more focused on what the Policy Research Office of the Center for Governance of the DAP can do in order to participate in the broader effort for collaboration in policy research. So next slide. Why policy research for us? Next slide. So we draw our efforts, we base our efforts on policy research. Next slide, please. On the mandate of the AP, Presidential Decree 205 as amended. DAP was created in 1973. We are now 50 years old, no, 50, and the Center for Governance is 25, no. So kalahati ng existence ng DAP, si Center for Governance, and the Policy Research Office is one of the offices under the Center for Governance. In DAP's mandate, no? So I know we know DAP is for our education and training programs, but if you look at our mandate, the research function or the research role is very much highlighted. So the mandate calls for us to foster and support development forces at work through, among others, research, data collection, information services. It calls on us to promote, carry, and conduct scientific, interdisciplinary, and policy-oriented research, no? And publication in broad areas, no? Economics, public administration, and political sciences, to study, determine, interpret, and publish, no, economic, political, social facts and principles. And our role is not limited to just to support the national efforts, but also in harmony with the regional efforts, no? So not just sa third mandate ng DAP. So we, the Policy Research Office, is really in implementation of this mandate. And the way we conceptualize our role now, next slide, please. We provide research-driven technical assistance and trainings to aid public managers and public sector organizations in developing and evaluating sound and responsive public policies and programs, and in establishing systems of integrity. We do policy analysis, evaluations, and impact assessments. We aid policymakers and decision makers in shaping and evaluating public policy and programs. We conduct policy analysis, evaluations, impact assessments, as well as other studies in pursuit of development and good governance. So essentially, this is how we see our mission, no, in the Policy Research Office. Next slide. Can we go to the next slide? We see this role as very relevant even under the present PDP, no? Please go to the next slide. Okay, so in the PDP, particularly in Chapter 16, the monitoring and evaluation chapter of the plan, the strategy is to strengthen the collection of data and improve the analysis and reporting. Balik lang po tayo. Improve the reporting. Can we go back to the previous slide? Reporting and analysis of data. Can we go to the previous slide? Okay, reporting and use of monitoring data. So the chapter also envisions a national evaluation agenda, and it calls for scope. Can we please go to that slide? It calls for scoping studies, no? As well as evaluation studies, no? So undertake scoping studies to identify knowledge gaps, and also to strengthen the collection, analysis, and use of evaluation data. So I think even under the PDP, very much highlighted the need for research and policy research for us to be able to know our progress in the Philippine Development Plan. The present PDP, of course, is the second plan, no? Under our journey towards ambition natin 2040. No? So it is important for us to know where we are so that we will be able to accomplish yung mga targets that's set in the results matrix of the PDP. Okay, next slide. So in the PDP, in the National Evaluation Agenda discussion, they actually adopted this framework on public sector management cycle. No? So where you can see it's just like the policy cycle with a emphasis on results. No? And to me, we are not able to do this if we are not able to establish results. No? So that's why research is important. That's why evidence is important. Okay, next slide. So for the Policy Research Office, next slide. We have some modest participation in policy oriented research. No? So this is a list of the things that we have done in recent years. Of course, this is just limited to what the Policy Research Office has done. Take note that DAP has a longer history, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Gonzalez can mention studies that were done in the past. And also there are other offices in the AP that also do research. No? So for us, these are recent involvement, recent outputs in terms of policy research. One of these include the rapid assessment on the bottom-up budgeting, the first round of bottom-up budgeting implemented. This was a study done for the DSWD. We've done an impact evaluation study also for the Commission on Higher Education on the financial assistance that they provide to state universities and colleges. We've done some studies for the Philippine Council on Agriculture and Fisheries. So one on the implications of the Bangsal law on agriculture and fisheries. And then we also did a review of the ATIGA, ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement, and its effect on agriculture and fisheries, and the policies on land use, agriculture land use, reclassification, and implication on food security, agriculture, productivity, rural livelihood, among others. We've also done evaluation studies, an evaluation study for the Center of Excellence Public Sector Productivity. That's an internal program of the AP. And currently, we're doing an assessment of the effectiveness of the Selected Farmers Information Technology Services Centers for the Agriculture Training Institute. This is now currently ongoing. So over the years, and we've done these studies in addition to some other studies that's more operations oriented, and we've had an experience on collecting primary data on the ground. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so in our policy related trainings, we of course teach, among others, the policy process. No? So the policy process, the stages heuristic policy process that was introduced by Laswell in the 1950s. So we are guided in our policy research by this framework, and also the framework by Kingdon. Next slide, please. the multiple streams approach. So according to Kingdon, there are three streams: the problem stream, the policy stream, and the politics stream. Only when they converge is there a window for prioritization of a problem. No? So using this in the next slide, I tried to visualize what things, what research questions are there in the various stages of the policy process, and what windows do us in the Policy Research Office and perhaps similar institutions would help create or take advantage of. So, and in relation to that, so you can see on the fourth row, the windows under agenda setting, policy formulation, decision making, policy implementation, and policy evaluation. So we see that for us to be able to help create or take advantage of these windows, there are several studies that we can do. So that's in the next row. And among these, we have done some of these types of studies. So in our effort to improve our policy research contributions, we are now looking into these types of studies. So that includes, among others, stakeholder satisfaction, impact evaluations, program evaluations, cost-benefit analysis, among others. Okay, next slide. So for us, when we think about priorities, of course, we have to be grounded on what's the present administration's socioeconomic agenda. And the present administration's agenda is an 8-point agenda, which includes food security, improved transportation, affordable and clean energy, healthcare, education, social services, sound fiscal management, and bureaucratic efficiency. So you can easily see from this 8-point agenda that there are very obvious issues. So we have issues on agriculture, transportation. We have the issue on modernization. We also have the issue on efficiency of mass transport. In clean energy, we have the issue of affordability, of course, as well as the required shift in our energy mix. And in healthcare, we are in implementation of the universal healthcare. So we are still aiming for the full implementation of the universal healthcare. And in education, we have an acknowledged learning gap. And at the same time, we have clamors for the evaluation of the K-12 program. In social services, we have, of course, the continuing evaluation of our 4Ps as well as other social protection programs. And in sound fiscal management, we, of course, have the continuing study or the continuing evaluation of our budget. So, and perhaps in bureaucratic efficiency, we can highlight the now existing proposal or now the present proposal for from DBM for right sizing. That's now pending in Congress. All these areas require policy research, and I hope na we will, in the Policy Research Office, somehow be able to contribute in the research needed for all these to resolve these issues. Okay, next slide. In the PDP, we have a strategy map that lays down what we want to accomplish up to 2028, and these are expressed in more explicitly in the the various chapters of the PDP. Next slide. I just want to highlight, and in most of these chapters, it is indicated there is a list, no, of proposed legislations, and all those proposed legislations require research, no, for them to be able to be considered with due diligence by Congress. No, so we feel that those are also areas where policy research is also needed. Okay, next slide. In relation to the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm sure our other resource persons are aware that in many of the targets, or in many of the targets under the different SDGs, the Philippines do not have full data. No? So we are not able to monitor our progress, no, towards this Sustainable Development Goals. So these are also knowledge gaps for us that can be addressed by policy research. Okay, next slide. So in relation to all that, we feel that possible priorities may include, no, research that support socio-economic agenda and the PDP, and also provide information in relation to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We, of course, perhaps especially to us, we consider it a priority. Researches on governance and productivity, no, these being the major themes, no, of in our work in DAP. We also would like to participate more in the conduct of evaluation studies for major programs and projects of government, and also to support, you know, important legislations as well as innovations in the public sector. So these, for us, these are some of our priorities. The next slide. Just a quick inventory. For us, we are a small unit. We have an interdisciplinary set of staff. We have some experience in primary data collection, and we have conducted a few studies, no, on policy, and we have had our training on quantitative and qualitative methodologies. We have access to DAP fellows and experts that can help our work on policy research. On the other hand, we have limited access to resources, and most of our resources so far has been demand driven. So, and we hope that we can address that. And another thing that may be addressed is weak monitoring of how our results, our research were used, and whether the recommendations were adopted. So in this, I end with this slide because we hope that based on this, we will be able to collaborate, more and better with the other offices involved in policy research. So we thank our other resource persons, of course, for giving us this opportunity to be able to share our thoughts also with them. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Director Lumantao, for updating us on what the DAP Policy Research Office is doing. Okay. At this point, I think we need a health break. So back to JE.
Sir Ed, thank you for that. No, yes, you're right. I think it's a good time for us to take a short health break. So time check right now, it's 11:14. So we'll resume the webinar at 11:20. So at this time, I'd like to take this opportunity for those who have their questions. We have a link that you can post your questions to. It's on the chat box at the moment. So you may access our Google form to input your questions for our speakers. So let's be back in a couple of minutes by 11:20. See you guys. right, so welcome back, everyone. So at this point, we will proceed with the reaction portion of today's webinar. I'd like to hand the floor back to Sir Ed. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay, at this point, we'll have the reactors. We have two of them. Okay, first one, Dr. Jalton Tagibaw, someone I'm quite familiar with. He's an associate professor at the Department of Political Science in UP Diliman. Okay. What else? Well, he's been involved in policy research and consultancy for government agencies and civil society organizations. Okay, he was head of the research and affiliated Network for Social Accountability East-West Asia and the Pacific, while providing policy advice as a consultant to national government agencies, including DAP, of course. You know. He obtained his degree in political science and master's in public management from UP, and he has a PhD in political science. So he conducted his postgraduate studies on research methodology from Humboldt University in Berlin, in Germany, and the Universidade de Sao Paulo in Brazil. So he is truly an expert on policy research. Okay, Dr. Jal?
Good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalez. Good morning to everyone. And thank you to our resource persons for their presentations for a very relevant, very relevant topic. I'd like to just limit my reactions to 2 or 3 points, just so we can also have enough time for the open forum, and probably those who have questions as well during the open forum, I'd be happy to respond to them. I appreciated very much the brief talk of ED Merwin Salazar, especially his emphasis on the different principles behind the urgency for collaborative policy research. We do have a lot of institutions that are very much engaged in policy research, and sometimes we work in silos. So it would be always a good thing, more beneficial even, for us to work together, share information, share our analysis for purposes of policy research. So as part of my reaction, I appreciate very much what ED Salazar shared. Also, what Sir Novel Bangsal of CPBRD shared, I was very much interested in the way he presented the different areas of research with respect to the need for transformation, no? Not just in governance, but also in Philippine society as well. We actually, what he did was not just to present to us a problem tree, uh, but he, using that, identified the different current research areas and also opportunities that might deserve attention for research in order to transform our society according to our national development goals. So I really liked how these things were disaggregated in his research. I also appreciate, of course, the presentation of Dr. Gerry Petilla of NCRP, and I specifically liked how he lodged the question, policy research for whom? Para ba kanino ang policy research? No? And sometimes we, as researchers, would always focus on the substantive part, but when it comes to policy development and policy design, we also have to think of the ramifications, the beneficiaries, the target sectors, or even the intended recipients of any form of government action. So thank you for that, Dr. Petilla. And then finally, to Director Gilbert Lumantao's presentation, just so there is a sort of a framework that brings together all these discussions. I think it is important to highlight there that policy research is part of the policy development process. And to put and add more context to it, the Development Academy of the Philippines, particularly the CFG Policy Research Office, has really been for how many decades already? For 25 years, has been working in performing this policy research mandate. So my kudos and applause to all our earlier presenters. Like I said earlier, please, I would just like to limit my reactions to 3 points in this case. The first is that policy research is part of the policy process, and this has to be clarified. It is not something that is done in alienation or separate from the whole policy development process. When we make policies, when we implement policies, when we evaluate policies, the policy research component is expected to be ubiquitous, expected to be present in all these different stages, because there is research of policy and there is also research for policy. Now, I think Dr. Petilla earlier mentioned this, but let me underscore this. Compared to exploratory, scientific, or academic research, policy research is a very specific activity. And the purpose of it is really to be able to come up and determine a course of action for an intended or desired outcome. So the purpose is clear. It is really to use knowledge and knowledge generation for purposes of action. So when we conduct policy research, the expectation would be really to end up with actionable recommendations. In our current age, especially in the last few years, the continuous threat of disinformation, specifically disinformation of policy research, has become even more pronounced. So a lot of us in different policy circles and policy communities would wonder why certain policies have been enacted or passed and what would be the basis of this. And disinformation becomes very much a threat because when we, much as we would like to inform decision makers, they can also be disinformed. So the best way to combat this is really to do honest to goodness work on policy research. Now, in addition to disinformation, the policy context in the decision processes that we have in our national legislature or even in our local government units or even in our organizations, these are very highly complex social systems that require study and investigation for any kind of action. And within this complexity, I'd like to draw your attention to the matter of agenda setting. When we do policy research, we are driven by agenda. And I think the presenters earlier would state, for example, that they have been driven by the PDP, they have been driven by national development goals or even sustainable development goals. These are agenda. And while it is good that we have this agenda, there are also things that are forgone. Merong iba na hindi napapansin. So part of policy research is also to be able to ensure that particular policy issues, particular area issues are given enough attention. I think this has been stressed earlier by Sir Bangsal. No, there are certain policy areas that require further attention if we are really serious about wanting to transform society through policy. But in certain cases and in certain occasions, certain policy areas are forgotten, and because other policy areas are given greater attention, given greater effort. And so this situation opens a lot of opportunities for policy research. In the policy process, therefore, when we do policy research, the scoping phase really matters. And I think Director Lumantao gave us an example of, what would be the scope of their policy research? How do you determine what is relevant? Or what are the different problems or opportunities that require greater attention? In fact, policy research need not necessarily be driven by problems. They can also be driven by innovations. And as of the moment, what we have, at least in this discussion, would be mainly government-driven policy research agenda. So while this is a good development, society must be heard. And so we have to spread this idea that policy research isn't just simply something that we do exclusively for government policy, where government becomes the origins of policy, but also society has to be able to have that capacity to initiate, to call on attention certain issues that matter for society. Policy research is therefore about data generation, knowledge, and information production. But more than that, policy research actually has the purpose of being able to help us capture what are the meaningful lessons from the practice of doing policy. What grounded things are there that need to be given attention or even importance? And in doing so, what would be sound methodologies or sound analysis when dealing with these data and information? This is short of saying that policy research has to have rigor, it has to have integrity and quality, because it is a knowing activity that allows us to separate the signal from the noise, or even make a sense of these signals and noises in order to improve our lives. So that would be the important one point that I'd like to stress. It's really research of policy and research for policy. Policy research is part of the policy development process. Second, as someone who is coming from the academe, pedagogy has a role, or the way we teach people, we skill people, we share our insights and knowledge to people. These actually help us democratize policy research for policy design and development. The literature, there is a group of scholars who actually criticize this idea of policy research because they claim that this is an elite endeavor. Only technical people, only experts are involved in the policy research process. And so it alienates, it disenfranchises sectors of society. It actually can encourage people to disengage on certain issues. It depoliticizes issues and lowers the energy and mutes the advocates coming from our citizenry. So the role of research institutes, the role of the academe, the role of universities and colleges really is not only to generate substantive knowledge about policy areas. It's not only to help in the formulation and development of policies, but to actually harness the capacities of sectors of society and provide them platforms so that they can dialogue and they can try to unpack the complexities of policy issues. The academe actually can help and must help empower people by skilling them and upskilling them, especially sectors of society who would like to engage government. So there is a teaching and pedagogical role and issue when we policy research. My third point actually is that there is also a place of critique when communicating policy. So policy research is about generating ideas and knowledge for public policy, but critique has a role, especially when we evaluate prior policies. Critique brings us to alternatives during the policy formulation process. It helps enlighten us further whether or not we should continue with certain actions that the government has been doing, or we should revise or amend or even for cessation to stop this. And in doing so, there is a place of critique and policy research that would help better inform decision processes and provide options and alternatives. So to wrap up this reaction, policy research is not only for evidence-based or evidence-informed decision processes. It's not to just simply legitimize the exercise of authority or discretion that government does. What we need also is a democratized policy process, and policy research has a place in that. If we push for collaborative, ethical policy research, then we can have public policies that are resolute with integrity. And, from these, you can also build policy research communities of practice. So I'll stop there with my reaction. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the open forum. Salamat po.
Okay, salamat, Jal, Thank you so much, And of course, we need those, we need those reminders from Dr. Tagiba. Okay, our next reactor, yes, Miss Maxine Tanya Hamada. She was former DBM Assistant Secretary, and then currently is the head of the HCAMP consultancy. She works to make policy that brings about change. She has over 2 decades of leadership experience in civil society as well as in government. She has helped establish 2 influential think tanks, InsightGov and iLead, and serve on the International Steering Committee for the World Movement for Democracy. Okay, currently she is the country coordinator for the campaign for tobacco-free kids and brings her skills and experience with civic leaders, civil society groups, and government institutions to ensure that our youth may reach their full potential away from vaping and smoking addiction. Okay, Ms. Maxine?
Thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalez. I like that I was introduced and my description there includes both my civil society and my government work, because I think essentially that would be where I'm coming from for this reaction. I am a practitioner, meaning I have been in monitoring, evaluation, advocacy, both from civil society as well as from the government side. So while I was listening, I couldn't help but take notes. So I'd like to share those notes. Para naman happy tayo. You're looking at how I was organizing my thoughts when I was listening to all the speakers. And we have a very powerful group of speakers here, very committed. I'd also like to shout out to those of you who are here listening and part of the online forum because you were in one or the other PRO capacity building workshops of DAP. I think you are the cohort who are going to take these conversations moving forward. So essentially, when I was listening, there is synergy, there is clear consistency and synergy across all the presentations. And the 3 points that I noted there, first, definitely we're trying to focus on collaborative research and policy research. So these are not new terms, but I think these are very important terms that have taken the spotlight today. And then the first point, there was clear consistency in terms of the presentations of how they look at it, but you could see that they were coming from different institutional perspectives. I particularly was so happy with the presentation of CPBRD, Director Bangsal, because in DBM, we have this saying, may kwento sa bawat kwenta. And essentially, Director Merwin Salazar and Director Bangsal were coming from the perspective of the cuenta. They are from Congress, which has the power of the purse. They have to deal every year with how are we going to use our meager resources as a country. And it was very beautiful to see how the framework put into place saan yung kwento sa ating kwenta. So these research suggestions that CPBRD was making are the important questions that we should really be asking when we're spending our money. Essentially, that is what research does. It allows us to ask the difficult questions. And in this case, for one of the most important policies of our nation, which is, of course, the national budget, plus all other supporting policy issuances that come from that, implementation of projects, regulatory frameworks, all of the leverage of the leveling the playing field. Nandun yun sa kwento yun. That's one. You could also see from the other presentations like that of and in each of them, there is a need to be technically sound but politically feasible. So you could see that all of them are very conscious of the political aspect of research, meaning there is demand from political perspective. It can be from the solons, it can be from the local government units, it can be from the executive. There is a need for policy research in general to be technically sound but also politically feasible. And finally, there is a need for common language. All of them were saying you deal with different stakeholders, whether it be LGU, academe, private sector, civil society. How can you have a productive discourse if you don't have common language? And policy research allows us to have that evidence-based discussion. It allows us to elevate, the level of discourse to that of how can we get the outcomes and the outputs that we want. So that's clear synergy across all presentations. I saw very, very important points that we need to also hear as the audience of this forum. Second is there is a need for a research agenda. Every single presentation called for the need for a research agenda. You could see from the presentations that as of now, we have what you call driving agendas. These are set by either the PDP, SDGs, your mandate, your focus, your sector. These are, kumbaga, ito yung base, ito yung ginagawa consistently, ito yung kailangang bantayan talaga na research. And then you have the responsive agenda. These are from requests from LGUs, from the Senate, from the House, from the Executive. But you also have, as Dr. Zhao said a while ago, how do you make it equitable, bring in the policy studies that are not being paid attention to. So there's the flexibility of a responsive agenda. So if we have a research agenda, I see that there is in each different institution, but maybe the challenge now is that how do we develop this research agenda for a competitive Philippines? And then third is, which goes to the heart of this forum, is really what define collaborative research. How do we now look at our roles, all of us? This is not, I agree that for now it's government steers it, it's government driven because the agendas have been articulated by government, but there also has to be a conversation. It has to be a conversation and even a debate between the public sector, the civic groups, the civil society groups, the private sector, and government. So how do you define this collaborative agenda? There is in the presentations a common call that we should have this. I think the challenge moving forward is that how now do we build on what is there? I like the idea of a pentahelix from the Senate's CEPO. I like the fact that the membership of NRCP is so broad and deep in terms of capacity and capability. And I do recognize that it is steered by government. So these are what came out in the presentations. How do we move forward? So these are some key ways that I was thinking, again, as a practitioner. My bias is a practitioner. First is, how do we put coordinating mechanisms in place? When I say coordinating mechanisms, if you're in government, it's either a calendar. So meron tayong budget calendar, meron tayong planning calendar. No matter what institution you are in, you have to follow the budget calendar. As Dr. Jal said, policy research has to be part of this policy process. So there are certain parts of the policy process that have been calendared. So how do we build a research calendar? How do we even imagine a research calendar that will allow private sector to jump in where it is most needed, civil society to engage when it has the data, public servants in different institutions to know where they're contributing the work that they're doing. So maybe that's one way that we can look at it. I wanted to flag that NEDA, and in full disclosure, I am helping NEDA out, try to see how we can formalize and strengthen what they call their 6-year evaluation agenda. So if this is one of those contributions to what would be a budget calendar, perhaps this is a start. I think that all of us can now at least look at some kind of a, fixed, useful timeline wherein we can see where all the work that we're doing is contributing to something, which goes to the fiscal side of it. I wouldn't be, true to my roots in DBM if I weren't trying to encourage that. There used to be a 3% monitoring evaluation fund provision in the budget. The reason why it's not continued could probably because it was not fully utilized by the agencies, or we were not yet in a position to maximize its potential. This is not an add-on budget. This is just trying to discipline all institutions of government to allocate at least 3% of their budget for monitoring evaluation purposes, including research. So imagine if you have to, within your institution, if you have to compete for what are already tightening fiscal resources, and you have to justify that at least 3% of our budget should make the rest of the budget more cohesive, efficient, and impactful. There is a possibility, I think, that we should try to return again the provision for mandating a 3% monitoring evaluation fund in the budgets. The last point I would want to make was also to build on what the NRCP said, that research, you have to look at who uses the research. It's also looking at how do you make the research consequential. So policy research, I'm not debating, it is definitely important, it is definitely useful, but is it consequential? How can we make it have consequences? What are the consequences if you don't do it right? And what are the incentives if you do it right? So we're trying to move the use of policy research from good to know. I mean, yes, okay, I hear of the research, but it doesn't impact my decisions, towards need to know. And there are directions in this, there are moves in this direction, like the budget bill was mentioned, how to make and institutionalize such that institutions, plan better, use their budgets better, move it towards performance-based budgeting. There's also the NEDA bill, which is trying to institutionalize the planning aspect of it. So I think we have to make, in both bills, integral the use of research. Make it explicit, make it integral, make it consequential. That maybe at one point we can get to a point wherein projects and proposals are not funded or are not given continuing budgets unless research is there, verifiable, peer-reviewed research is there, that these projects and programs actually have impacts. So I'd like to end with saying that in saying all of this and being in this forum, we are trying to go towards what we've always been trying to advocate as a community of practice. We have to build a cohort that is strong enough and deep enough such that the practice becomes regular. So while now we may be investing a lot of our resources, time, effort into getting more people in government interested in doing the verifiable research, getting the skills there, getting the competencies, getting the fiscal resources there, it should come to a point wherein there are enough of this cohort that it becomes a self-propelling activity of government. And I have no doubt that each of the institutions who presented here today will be playing a very big role in making sure that that happens. And for any support, you have many of us also who have contributed to M&E thinking and policy over the course of our careers, and will continue to do so, as well as all of you 296 people who are in this forum who are now part of this effort. So thank you again to DAP for organizing this, and to the speakers. I learned a lot this morning, and it really encourages those of us who are practitioners that we are actually ripe. I think the Philippines is ripe for the tipping point maybe has come for us to really move into research-driven policy making. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hamada. We learned a lot from you, not necessarily from a purely government perspective, but also, from the perspective of the civil society. Okay, at this point, I guess we have a limited time for open forum. Okay, I think the staff has consolidated many of the questions coming from the participants, no? And can we have them? Also, some of the participants might wish to, address their questions directly, in which case you simply have to raise your hand. I think there's a symbol there, in Zoom that can make that possible. Okay, pero yun, can we have those questions? Okay, this is from Jeremias Galanto from Napolcom. So addressed to all the presenters. On the scale of 1 to 10, may we know your insights on the role of political will or aspect of political implementation considering its challenges? So it's merely a question of, how much do you put weight, on the role of political will? Can we call?
Can I start, Sir Edgon?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Jeremias. I think more than political will, you also would like to look at political capital. And just to give you an example of where can you leverage that kind of political capital, especially in legislation, you just have to look at our experience in pushing for the seed tax. Seed tax is a very controversial and very of course daming players, and of course there are economic players that would be affected, but you just have to parang one is yung messaging. You have to parang develop a message that would appeal to the broadest audience for support. So I think kasi especially for relevant and landmark legislations, I think it's important that you have the broadest audience or broadest constituency para ma-hurdle mo yung resistance, opposition, because there will always be an opposing side. And especially for critical policies, I think it's important that kailangan you can effectively leverage whatever political capital you have in order to draw support for that particular advocacy. So, and for you to be able to draw that support, I think it's very important for research to be able to, present a data-driven, evidence-based outputs so that you're able to, establish certain level of integrity, credibility, and trust. I think public trust is very critical in this aspect, especially in our line of business.
Okay, anyone else from the speakers who wish to answer that question before we go on to the next one?
Yeah, can I also share my 2 cents on the
Okay.
question? The political will is crucial in pushing for a research agenda. It can influence, for example, direction, funding, and prioritization. But I think one important aspect is that political will is more crucial in implementing the results of the research. If you in evaluation, you call it legitimization. If you wanted to carry out what the evidence says in terms of policy or programs, then you legitimize it, the evidence, and then if there is a political will to do that, and then that is more valuable or important to nation to national development, because that's, I think, what is mostly lacking. I would say in today's what is happening in the Philippines. Most of the research evidence are not being translated into policies or programs, because there are other, you would understand that there are other interests that come into play when it comes to decisions of our decision makers in government. So that's
Okay, Gilbert, you raise your hand.
I just want to point out that I think it's a common view for many of us that we have good policies, we have important policies, but we are weak in implementation, and that's one perspective. But the other perspective is that is the issue of design. So I think that in many of our policies, the issue of implementability as well as measurability of outcomes are not really put into the design. And I think policy research can improve that. So if we are able to establish what really do we want to accomplish in major legislations or major policies, and document the targets, as well as address the issue of whether these policies will be implemented by the people on the ground. Then maybe we can have more effective policies.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Okay, yes, Dr. Petilla.
Yeah, in response to the question, on a scale of 1 to 10, I guess it's 5. First is the fact that the challenge that a particular policymaker will able to listen and propose and identify a problem or a challenge or innovation, that in itself is an achievement and accomplishment of political. However, a decision maker, a legislator, will be able to strengthen more of that political will if he has the evidence to support him. I think that research is political will is not an isolated thing. In other words, the will is also based on the kind of evidence that he has. That's why this is where research can come in. If he has the evidence and the support of the people who are into research, science, for example, it strengthens it's a result. It gives him a point that he has to move and strengthen that political will. However, we are also recognizing of the fact that there will be some changes, challenges, especially in politics. This is where I think if the policies are actually communicated and shared with the people, there is what we call greater ownership. That in spite or despite of the fact that the politician or the legislator will be gone, or there'll be some change, there will be the people who will remind and probably be there to help implement the policies. That's why we need. I see the role of educating. I see the role of educating. I see the role of capacity building. I see the role of advocating to prepare also the people, be a part, consultation to be a part of the so-called implementation, because policies should not be dependent on politicians or legislators, because once they're gone, the policies are also gone. But whenever the community and the society are also engaged, I think there's a greater chances that the policies can be implemented.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we will need to go to the next question. Can you move to the next slide? Yes. This is from Teta Pardalis of CEPO. The government has many, offices and agencies dealing with policy research. How do we avoid redundancy or duplication of research outputs? Okay. I think this has been partly answered, collaboration, coordination, but the speakers may wish to add more to that.
Can I answer Teta's question? I think we need to establish a clear mandate for each and every policy research office in every institution in order to avoid overlapping and ensure that each research office will specialize in a distinct policy area or research methodology, for instance. And also, we should also encourage interdisciplinary and interagency research projects. I know we are doing that already. Some of us are into it. Some of, like what has been mentioned by Director Gilbert, and of course CEPO and CPBRD are also doing some interagency research projects. But we should do this government-wide to be able to prevent duplication of research efforts. And of course, there should be monitoring and feedback loop to be able to ensure that all researchers are aligned with current policy priorities and needs. That will be all. Thank you.
Sir Edgon?
Yes, Norbert?
Yes, very quickly lang. Siguro Teta, I think that's why we have been emphasizing the need for a research agenda, and if possible, like from our end sa CPBRD and sa House, kasi we did a parang a legislative agenda workshop nung nag-start yung 19th Congress, and we publish it online. So I think it's important that we need to be, very transparent about what we intend to do. So I think that's where the research agenda, importance of research agenda comes in. So I think it would be able to reach to many of the institutions, and more or less at least siguro makakapag-identify pa kayo ng common areas for collaboration. So I think that's what I just wanted to say, sir.
Okay. Yes, it's 12:04, and I think we need to get some permission to extend the time. Is it okay? So far, our participants have not left, 289 of them. So very interesting, so that's the reason why, we want, more time really to discuss all these matters. So,
Sir Ed,
next question.
Sir Ed, maybe we can entertain one or two more questions.
One or two more questions. Okay, sige. What's the next one? Can you put it on the screen? Oh, from Gilbert himself. No, it's directed to Gilbert, ano? Okay. Can you go over to the possible priorities of the policy research? Can you show an example of a policy research framework? I think, to my mind, I think Director Lumantao was already, discussed the possible priorities, di ba? But you might want to elaborate on a specific example that will show the policy research framework, being done or being followed by the PRO.
I think for policy research, we are, of course, focused on the themes that DAP is working on governance and productivity. And we are, of course, wanting to do more policy researches in these areas. So especially in relation to the issues that's related to the PDP and the socio-economic agenda of the president. I think there were many that were highlighted. There's actually a lot of areas to be researched on. So kaya talagang agenda we need to prioritize. And in the Policy Research Office, of course, we do not have that much of, we're just a small unit. So we, of course, will have to focus on a few policy researches. And I think perhaps top of our agenda are those researches on governance as well as productivity, as well as the evaluation of policies and programs. So we, of course, want to help implementing agencies to be able to evaluate in a scientific basis the implementation of policies as well as major programs. I think that will be the focus of the Policy Research Office's work.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Gilbert. Next question, maybe the final one. Can you show it again on the screen? Okay. So wala nang question.
Dr. Ed?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
all right.
More remarks from Dr. Petilla.
Yeah, just a response to the last question regarding on priorities of policy research.
Okay.
Agencies who are responding to research policy, these are some of the realities. First is there is a huge demand for policy research in the country. And when we speak of research, unfortunately, policy research is not that commonly done in the country. There are very few agencies that provide that kind of service. There's a lot of demand from the national, local, and other communities. The second concern is the budget, considering that all of us here, I mean, the speakers who are here are government institutions. We are dependent on government funds unless we are also being commissioned by somebody that they have to pay. But more importantly, we have to utilize. There's always the issue of how much budget do we have, but you have the great market. There's a great supply or demand, but little supply. So these are one of the things that we have to consider. So when we look at the discussion of the speakers, we primarily focus on the priority of the government, because we need to respond, because we always consider that the priority of the government would be the necessary things that we have to do because it will respond to development. However, I agree to the observation or the comment a while ago by our colleague from UP that while we talk about mostly of the government centered na priorities, we have to also be sensitive about those areas in our society that are not really much heard of. Meaning the voice of the people, the community, whoever needs also to be considered in the process. So there's always some kind of, we have to strike a balance on that. That's why we want to I think on the side of the framework, I always believe that that policy research framework is evolving. While we have certain models, but when we go down and the practice, there will be always an evolving and innovation and changes on how we do the policy framework or policy research. And we can learn a lot as we do the policy research on the ground. There will be a lot of developments coming in. For one, I always consider that the collaboration between the different disciplines would be very important. Hindi lang collaboration between among government agencies, but it's also important that among those who are providing the service, researchers and different disciplines are also talking. They also discuss. And then the people also, the researchers from the other parts of the country are also discussing with other parts in the provinces and that areas. And then involving different institutions. I think this enriches also the kind of framework that we have. Ang importante po para to address also redundancy is complementing. Whatever is needed by one agency that's not being by other agency, I think the other agency can complement. That's one way to probably avoid redundancy. Thank you.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Dr. Petilla. Well, instead of giving a synthesis, given that we already have overstretched, our time, and there's still another step to be undertaken, which is, of course, the awarding. So let me just give you my final word on this. My own final word. So policy research, needs resuscitation. Not because smart politicians interfere, but simply because it takes hard work to design a system that both allows efficient collective decisions and protects the legitimate interests of various constituents, including the poor and the marginalized. If we are truly aligned to the international standards, the Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations, our own Bagong Pilipinas agenda, then we need to make sure that the outcomes of policy research will lead to a progressive, fair, and just Philippine society. Okay, so that's it. And over to you, J.E.
Once again, thank you, Sir Ed, for moderating a very well-discussed and ongoing conversation on policy research. And I would also like to thank all the other speakers and reactants as well. And at this point of the program, I would like to give due recognition to the people that have made this webinar possible, which is our resource persons and reactants. So I will just briefly read what the certificate of appreciation will show. So can we move to the next slide? So the Development Academy of the Philippines gives this certificate of appreciation. Is presented to Sir Merwin Salazar and all the other resource persons in deep recognition and sincere gratitude for serving as a resource person during this webinar. So there's the theme of this webinar and under the Policy Research Office on February 21, 2024. Signed by our new president, Ms. Dr. Maja Lea Ravago. So thank you for this. And yes, we will be giving the certificate of appreciation at a later time. So at this point of the program, I would like to call on the director of the Policy Research Office, Sir Gilbert Lumantao, to give us his closing remarks. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay. Good noon, everyone. As we draw this productive day to a close, we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to our distinguished speakers And of course, to you also, our dear participants, for being part of this first edition of the Policy Research Office online lecture and discussion series. No? So we hope to be able to do this again, perhaps another time this year. No? And we are especially happy that you participated, because this is part of our celebration of, again, the 25th anniversary of the Center for Governance. So the discussions and perspectives that you have all shared underscores the critical role that policy research possesses, no, in shaping effective governance. Allow me to specifically thank our resource persons, Director Merwin Salazar, Executive Director Novel Bangsal, also my former colleague in the Presidential Anti-Graft Commission, Director Geraldo Petilla, as well as our reactors, Prof. Jalton Tagibaw, and our regular resource person, Ms. Maxine Hamada, for providing us your insights from your respective institutions, and on the need of for greater collaboration towards evidence-based policymaking. You have highlighted specific areas of focus for collaboration and research in government. Today's online discussion recognizes the importance of building linkages with the academe and non-governmental organizations as well. No? So we highlight the participation of Dr. Tagibaw as well as Ms. Maxine Tanya Hamada. Finally, my appreciation goes to our former DAP President, Dr. Ed Gonzalez, for being with us the whole morning, moderating this discussion and guiding it to a good conclusion. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you also for the groundwork that you have done for the Policy Research Unit here in the DAP. I trust that the dialogue initiated today will spark more interest and in following editions of the online lecture and discussion series. And as we conclude, I invite everyone to remain engaged in crafting policy research, in supporting policy research, and perhaps developing a common policy research agenda for government in the future. Thank you once again for your active participation, and hope that we will see you all in the next sessions of this online discussion series. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Gilbert, for your closing remarks. At this point, we will be ending the live stream on Facebook. But for our Zoom participants, kindly stay in the Zoom room, as we will be having a short pictorial or a virtual photo ops just to commemorate this event. So stand by, everyone. I think we have a lot of slides, actually 12 slides of participants. So PMT, kindly stand by as we take screenshots of each slide. So I'll go over them very briefly. So on my mark, kindly flash your memorable poses. All right. So for the first slide, for the speakers, ready, smile. Okay. Second frame, 1, 2, 3, smile. Third, kindly flash. Okay. For the fourth frame, and now we have to the fifth. 1, 2, 3, smile. And then for our sixth frame, okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Most of them have not turned on their video cams, so I think that should be fine. Thank you so much. We may now proceed to the closing part of this webinar. So I would like to take this time to remind everyone to kindly accomplish the evaluation form. This evaluation form is important for you to secure your e-certificates for this webinar. So we will be posting the link here in the screen. We have the QR code for that, and we also have the URL link that you can visit to access the evaluation form. So please be reminded that we will leave the Zoom room open until 1 p.m. And we will be accepting responses to the evaluation form until only 2 p.m. today. So kindly make sure that you're able to accomplish the evaluation again to secure your e-certificates. So on behalf of the Center for Governance and the Policy Research Office, thank you all for being a part of the 25th anniversary of CFG and the first session of the PRO's online lecture and discussion series. So I'd just like to briefly thank all the organizers of this webinar, the Policy Research Office, which is spearheaded by Director Gilbert Lumantao, and all the staff who have made this possible, Ms. Nevea Ordas, Ms. Gianna Catolico, Ms. Jay Comilio, Ms. Joy Banyo, Ms. Clary Castillo, Ms. Trisha Mariano, and yours truly, Jay Rivera, your host and MC for this day. So kindly follow us on our Facebook page, which has been live streaming the event, Policy Research Office. This will be your guide to follow for the next sessions, as Director Gilbert mentioned, of the Policy Research Lecture and Discussion series. So kindly stay tuned because there will be a lot more webinars to come around the corner. So once again, good afternoon, good noon, everyone, and see you around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sir Ed.
Thank you.
Bye, Merwin. Bye, Jerry.
Bye.
Bye, Sir Gons. Nice to see you again.